A young, up-and-coming center has been linked to the New York Knicks via the trade market. Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz. Will the Jazz be willing to move on? Are the Knicks willing to trade assets for a young center? Find out in this upcoming video. Welcome in everyone, this is Luca here from Knicks Cast coming at you live with another video, as today I'll be talking about the Knicks rumors with Walker Kessler and should they make that trade. Meanwhile, if you guys haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, and share out, and also turn on that notification bell so you know when a live stream goes live or a video is uploaded or premiering. So please do all the good stuff. Meanwhile, I'll get to the video. So, the New York Knicks need a backup center. Why mask? Isaiah Hartenstein in recent days signed a 3-year, $87 million contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder, $29 million AAV. As you know, the Knicks could not re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein under the new CBA rules. The max they could offer him was 4 years, $72 million, $18 million in AAV money. Regardless, the Knicks have a backup center problem. So, what are their options right now? Right now, they also have Precious Achiuwa, who is a restricted free agent, but the Knicks ended up renouncing his rights, making him an unrestricted free agent, so he is available to sign. The Knicks have interest in him, and he has interest in them, but he has also been seeked out by other teams. You also have free agents like Nick Richards, who has also been linked to the Knicks by Ian Begley. Daniel Tice is available, as well as Tristan Thompson, who is available as well. Obviously not the Tristan Thompson of old from the Cavs days with LeBron, but regardless, the Knicks have a backup center problem on their hands, and I think the best solution is going out and getting Walker Kessler. So, this is not just any rumor. The Knicks have been linked to him, as I said, by Ian Begley of SNY and Hoops Hype's Mike Scotto. So first we'll discuss Walker Kessler's 2-year career in the NBA. He was actually drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies and then traded on draft night to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Jake LaRavia along with Ty Washington, obviously going to the Timberwolves. So Kessler would not be a mainstay in Minnesota as he would be packaged in the mega deal that would bring Rudy Gobert, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, to Minnesota. Obviously Kessler, you think of guys like Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, all in that deal. Patrick Beverley as well, who was point guard out for 1 year with the Timberwolves, and a bunch of picks sent to Utah to fully start their rebuild. So out of Auburn, Walker Kessler was seen as a great shot blocking talent with excellent size, and boy, has that translated. So looking at his overall numbers from the past 2 seasons, we start with his rookie season with the Utah Jazz. He averaged about 9.2 points per game, 72% from the field in field goal shooting, as most of his looks were under the basket. Not much of a three-point shooter, but we'll get to the offense in a little bit. He also averaged 8.4 rebounds per game, 2.3 blocks per game, and 2.3 personal fouls per game. Now, if you look at some of the scouting reports, prior to him being drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies, eventually be traded to the Timberwolves, he had a problem with discipline. He nearly averaged 3 fouls per game in his final season at Auburn. Obviously, lack of discipline, but Kessler has shown to be more disciplined as his fouls have taken a decline in the past 2 seasons. Now, to bring up his recent season, 2023-2024, I'll also bring up later on how his role has declined. He averaged about 8.1 points per game, 65% from the field, with 7.5 rebounds, a little bit decline in the rebounds. He also averaged 2.4 blocks per game and 2.1 fouls per game. Pretty good, not going to lie, for a center who was a great shot blocker, but has also seemed to be undisciplined, as I said in his scouting reports in college. So looking at some of the advanced numbers, I'm going to also add again, this is 2022-2023. The Jazz were the 23rd ranked defense. This is no longer the defense under Quinn Snyder. This was a new coach in Will Hardy, who is taking up the team. Fresh start, fresh rebuild, obviously acquiring Lauri Markkanen among other players. So it was not a great defense. Walker Kessler was probably their best big man. So his defensive win shares was about 2.5, really high, ranked at least higher than Clint Capella, Isaiah Hartenstein, Dylan Brooks, LeBron James, and Aaron Gordon. Now, Not a lot of big men there. You obviously have Clint Capella and Isaiah Hartenstein sticking out. Hartenstein, obviously a former member of the Knicks. Clint Capella, who has been a veteran center and is still very good at defending shots at the rim. And, I'm not saying he's better than LeBron James or Aaron Gordon defensively, but to be in that same class, even as a rookie, is very, very good, very solid. And obviously, again, being a part of the 23rd ranked defense, he was the best player on the floor. Now looking at some of his other stats, let's start with defensive box plus minus 1.5. The average in the NBA is 0, so he was 1.5 points above average. And now he was in the class with some other centers, or I should say 4 centers that I only put here, only centers. And Mitchell Robinson being one of them, Isaiah Hartenstein being one of them as well, Brook Lopez and Jarrett Allen. So again, showing his impact defensively, being one of the best rim protectors in all of basketball. And there will be more stats upcoming showing his impact on the floor, even when his team regressed defensively in 2023, 2024. So you get to still 2022, 2023, looking at his on-off numbers per PBP stats. So on the floor with the Utah Jazz, this is the Utah Jazz. This is not Walker Kessler's individual stats. The Jazz, when Kessler was on the floor, had a net rating of 3.53. Their offensive rating was 118.31, and their defensive rating was 114.78. Their opposing 2-point field goal percentage was around 50%. Their opposing 3-point field goal percentage was around 36.59. Now, the problem is with Kessler off the floor, which was plenty of minutes, around 2,258, their net rating, as in the Utah Jazz, was negative 4.19. Their defense got 4 points worse, rising to about a defensive rating of 118.92. Their offensive rating also got worse, 114.73 with him off the floor. The opposing 2-point field goal percentage went up by 6 points. Their 3-point percentage, the opposing 3-point percentage decreased, but we'll talk about that in his various roles and what coverages he plays and all of that. But we also look at another factor that the Knicks will, need for their backup center, and that is the defensive rebounding, also offensive rebounding. Kessler, in his first season as a member of the Utah Jazz in the NBA, he averaged around 3.1 offensive rebounds per game. So giving the offense second chance opportunities is really going to help. So regardless, offensive rebound percentage aside, like the defensive rebounding percentage, the Knicks need somebody who is size and can grab the boards, and they struggled with that in the Indiana Pacers series. They were being ran down for loose balls, out-hustled, outbeaten on the glass by Isaiah Jackson and Miles Turner, so they're going to need a steady presence for that second unit. I don't think the Precious Achiuwa is that answer, but regardless, we'll break into the numbers for Kessler. In 2022-2023, his defensive rebounding percentage was 24.1. Now, average around, usually centers with a defensive rebounding percentages, you're talking 20-25%. So he is in that range to be average, above average regardless. His defensive rebounding percentage was better than Jarrett Allen, Bam Adebayo, Miles Turner, Jason Tatum, and Alperen Sengun, just for reference numbers. But, as I talked about earlier, let's move to 2023 and 2024. The Utah Jazz were the NBA's worst defense. And now we'll start off with his impact on and off the floor. As I said, the numbers per PBP stats. So on the floor, the net rating with Walker Kessler on the floor was actually negative. Now, you also take into context with those numbers from this year and the numbers from last year, it also depends on who you play with and what coverages and all those different things that come into play. It's not just the player himself, it's who he's surrounded by, what role is he taking on defensively, what role is he taking on offensively. So regardless, let's get to the numbers. The net rating was negative 4.68 in about 1,493 minutes. Their defensive rating with him on the floor was 118.88, similar to what it was when he was off the floor in the previous season. And the opposing 2-point field goal percentage was a little above 50%, but the 3-point percentage opposing-wise in defending was just as bad with him on the floor as it was off the floor. So with Walker Kessler off the floor, the net rating didn't change much, but was still negative 4.79. And the minutes that he was off the floor was about 2,468. Again, I talk about a reduced role. I'll get to that in a second as well. 116.64. The offensive rating actually got better with Kessler off the floor, but the defensive rating got worse, 121.42. Now, just to take in some of the stats, I'm going to also bring up the advanced numbers that I brought from his previous season. And you look at defensive win shares, 1.7, not bad, a little bit of a drop off from the 2.5. Again, you take into context who he's playing with, what the situation is, what coverages are being ran, what role he has to take on, all of that, and you'll see a bit of a decline. As I said, the Jazz became the NBA's worst defense as opposed to being 23rd the previous season. And to look at some of the defensive win shares numbers, looking at it in comparison, just to name two players, he was better than Derek Jones Jr. and Nick Batum, guys who are defensively minded and on the wings. Now, looking at some of the numbers as well and looking at some of the lineups and how many minutes he was sharing with, as in terms of Kessler, he was sharing minutes with John Collins. John Collins is a massive, wide open hole defensively, so he's going to put more pressure on Kessler to guard in the post and at the rim and on the perimeter. Lauri Markkanen, he was paired about, I'd say, the same amount of minutes, or at least less than the previous season. As I said, Markkanen was the starting power for the past two seasons, and he started with Kessler in the previous season. And you also have to add in rookie Taylor Hendricks. Hendricks was more defensively minded coming out of UCF. Great shot blocker on the floor, but he did have his struggles. So that all caused a decline in his defensive win shares, and it can change, as I said, with the team defense and around said players. Now you look at his defensive box plus minus, that also took a bit of decrease, but he's still above average at that center position, above average in the NBA. You look at his defensive box plus minus on the regular, this is for Basketball Reference, 1.3. His crafted defensive box plus minus is still phenomenal. Crafted NBA, obviously, they have some great analytics, some which I got my stats from. His crafted defensive box plus minus was a 1.5, and that ranks in the 88th percentile. Phenomenal for, as I said, being in the last ranked defense across the NBA, a young up-and-coming center who is obviously, not playing the most ideal of defensive lineups. And in terms of overall defensive box plus minus, or I should say overall box plus minus in general, 70th percentile, not bad. We'll talk about his offense. We'll talk about that as well, how he is a bit of a negative on that side of the ball. So looking at the crafted box plus minus, he was in the same tier as Nicholas Claxton. Claxton, a very good defensive center, obviously with the Brooklyn Nets. He just re-signed on a $100 million deal, 4 years and $25 million in the AAV category. And you also look at his defensive rebound percentage, about 23.1, which is around the same as it was before. Same category as Chet Holmgren, he also had a defensive rebound percentage better than Miles Turner, Daniel Gafford, and Isaiah Hartenstein, all playing on playoff teams. Gafford, obviously, with the Mavericks in the finals, Hartenstein with the Knicks, Indiana Pacers with Miles Turner. And to talk about his defensive role a little bit, and I was watching some of the film per the high-low little clip, couple of clips, not so much the games, but you get to see the defensive actions and what kind of role he played, and also reading up himself as well. So Walker Kessler in his previous two seasons, this also applies to Lauri Markkanen as well, played mostly drop in Utah. Now, I didn't see much of that in his Auburn film. So Utah, playing mostly drop coverage, and that could honestly hurt him if he comes to the Knicks. The Knicks, as you saw in the playoffs with Miles Turner, in the regular season with Porzingis and Brook Lopez and Nikola Vucevic, the Knicks struggle heavily with drop coverage on pick and pops, where the centers can go out to the three-point line. They're open for three easily. So the Knicks have to defend better against that, and they need somebody who could defend better against that. They need somebody who's scheme versatile. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Kessler's versatile in terms of scheme. But can he get better? Absolutely. He's only played 2 years in the league, and the Knicks have a ton of control on him. And we know Tibbs, he coaches centers very well. It's like his prized possession. That's where his of expertise is the big man. You obviously see Precious Achiuwa have a real role last season. Isaiah Hartenstein has had a real role with the Knicks the past 2 years, and he's gotten better. He got a bag from the Oklahoma City Thunder for a reason. So the question is around Kessler's role. Can he play in a non-drop scheme? Now, Tibbs has to adapt a little bit and say, you know what? Listen, we played drop against these bigs last year. We can't have the same thing, as last year. We need to improve. If we're going to want to be a championship contender, we need to change it up a little bit and have these, centers not play so much drop. Obviously, it depends on the versatility. It also depends on the mobility on the perimeter. Kessler's okay on the perimeter. Looking at his college film, is he great? No, but I think he is, mobile enough to be at least serviceable on the perimeter. Obviously, we'll see if he gets on the Knicks, and we'll see, that for ourselves. But looking at some additional stats as well 3 centers played at least 750 minutes last season, and this is per DJ Ace NBA, who works with the Knicks Film School. Please check him out. He tweets, 3 centers played at least 750 minutes last season and received an A-plus grade in the B-Ball Index's rim point saved metric. Those include Kristaps Porzingis, Rudy Gobert, and Walker Kessler. And to note, Kessler is the only player in the league to receive an A grade in both of his last 2 seasons. You're talking his rookie and sophomore seasons, even when he was the rim protector and their best defensive center on a not-so-good defensive team, so he was the outlier. But I was watching also a video earlier, a couple of days ago, should I say. This was with Strickland and Schwinny-Poo, I should say Schwinny-Poo on X, that's his username, was talking about, why the rumors he thinks make sense. So just to add that Walker Kessler had his role relegated. His role decreased with the Utah Jazz. He started less games, he played less games, and he also had less minutes on the court. Just to look, minutes per game was around the same, roughly 23 minutes per game in both seasons, but he started less games. He only started 22. Markkanen obviously starting more games, and they opted to go with John Collins, I think, at the 4 and Markkanen at the 5. Regardless, Kessler only played 64 games as well. Could that be a health thing? I don't know. But regardless, looking at Kessler and all of that goodness, his role was regressed. So we don't know if the Utah Jazz want to hang on to him. So regardless, as well, just to make this point, he wasn't an original draft pick, as I mentioned in the first part of the video. He was originally selected by the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously traded with him and Ty Washington to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Jake LaRavia and eventually shipped out for Rudy Gobert. So he is not their pick. May I also add, he does have years of control. Obviously, if the Jazz want to keep him, if they don't want to keep him, they can trade him away. Years of control. It's not like you're trading away for nothing and he's like a rental to another team regardless. So Utah also as well, just to keep in mind, I haven't been keeping with track of this, but it was a good note by Schwinny-Poo. Utah might want to keep their first round pick next year. And obviously, why would Kessler have anything to do with that? Utah might actually want to get worse and try to go in low in the lottery as possible. This year wasn't so great. There's not a lot of high ceilings on the main picks of the 2024 NBA draft. You look at Alex Sarr, you look at those guys, and it's like they didn't have that high of a ceiling coming out of the draft. It's not like superstar potential. So you're looking at next year's draft, guys like Cooper Flagg coming out, and there's more star potential there. So Danny Ainge will probably try to look for his next face of the franchise. That's why, Lauri Markkanen's come up in trade rumors. He was obviously previously in trade rumors with the Golden State Warriors. They executed on a trade for Buddy Hield. Who knows if Markkanen is still available. Obviously, they have Draymond Green still there, but regardless, they want to keep their first round pick. They want to go full tank mode, and they want to fully rebuild this thing. Why be mediocre when you could tank and get better lottery selections, more draft picks, regardless, all of that. So, also another thing that Schwinny-Poo happened to mention, more 5-out play style. Will Hardy wants to play more 5-out play style. So Kessler, and this all goes to Kessler's offense as well. Kessler was not a 3-point shooter in college. I mean, he was, but he wasn't a very efficient one. So they want to stretch out Markkanen into the 5, reminiscent of this year's Celtics. So you will have Markkanen on the perimeter. You have a bunch of guys who could shoot the 3-ball. Kessler's not an in-depth 3-ball shooter. In college, he shot 20% from 3. And it's not like that has, improved in the NBA. It's similar numbers in the NBA as well, which lead to the problem of his fundamentals. Obviously, you could work with the shooting coach and get better, but regardless, Kessler's game has not developed offensively in the NBA. Most of his shots are being taken at the rim or from 5 to 10 feet. That's about 93% of his shot diet. And as I said, shot 20% from 3 on 1.5 attempts per game from 3, and only 5% of his shot diet from this season was from 3-point range. So it's not like he's taking a lot of them. Obviously, actually the year prior, it was less. So he's shooting more, but again, not the same clip, or I should say not a better clip from the previous season, and it doesn't seem to get better. But you hope that, in due time, it gets better so the Knicks can have a somewhat offensive center with more of a defensive mind, obviously, because the Knicks lost Isaiah Hartenstein. Hartenstein had that floater. He also had a great passing game, and he could cut as well. Now, Kessler's role obviously depends on his own development as well, where Tibbs wants to put him. But looking at some of the offensive numbers, why, he's a negative on that offensive side. I already talked about his offensive role. His 2023 offensive box plus minus was 1.4. Okay, he's an above average player in 2023, but in 2024 with less minutes, was a negative 0.4 offensive box plus minus per Basketball Reference, and per Crafted NBA, negative 1.1, which ranked in the 37th percentile. Again, he's fairly average or above average in terms of his overall impact on the floor, but the offense is a black hole. And now you wonder, like, how is that going to fit with Josh Hart? Is that going to fit with Dante DiVincenzo and Deuce McBride? If he stays, we'll talk about that in a sec. But overall, Kessler will have to be better on the offensive side to at least fit with the Knicks to have some sort of offensive game. And now the Knicks can obviously run pick and rolls with Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart and Deuce McBride, whatever, and get Kessler involved. That's where he was a monster in college, and not so much from the three-point line. Doesn't really have a shot in between the three-point line and the rim. So regardless, it's going to take the Knicks some assets to trade for Walker Kessler. It's not just going to be, okay, trade 2 second-round picks and this be it. Danny Ainge is going to want something in return, and the Knicks have felt that firsthand. They were in the negotiations for Donovan Mitchell with Danny Ainge, and Ainge wanted a ransom. Now, it was, I believe, 5 to 6 first-round picks, plus Quickly, R.J. Barrett, Obi Toppin, Deuce McBride. Now, Quickly, Barrett, and Toppin are gone, and I'll mostly have received paydays. Deuce McBride is still on the team, but regardless, if you trade for Donovan Mitchell in that scenario, you don't get Mikal Bridges at all, and that kind of lowers your ceiling. But Ainge has always been a guy who wants to win trades, and he's always going to want to win those trades and get as many picks as possible, King's ransom, whatever you want to call it. He always wants to win trades. So the Knicks, ideally, they don't want to trade Deuce McBride. They got him on a great contract, 3 years, $13 million. Funny, signed right after the R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly deal, where Deuce McBride blossomed offensively, also in terms of Quentin Grimes' minutes being taken over by Deuce. And, his three-point shooting got better. His mid-range game became a lot better, should I say. And they want to trade one of the more valuable contracts on their team, such a low salary. But you also think at the same time, you're trying to push for an all-in window. And you obviously want to make the salaries match. Now, Kessler, I believe, is $2.9 million. He's due for $2.9 million on the books this year. Deuce McBride's around $4 million, so you're going to have to add a player from the Jazz to make those salaries match. But at the same time, Deuce McBride had some issues defensively in the playoffs. And to be fair as well, we all like Deuce McBride. Some fans might become emotionally attached. There is a solution, however, if you trade Deuce McBride and exchange for Walker Kessler. That could be Jericho Sims as well. The Knicks have also picked up his option, so you can maybe use it as filler. But regardless, if let's just say the Knicks trade Deuce McBride and Jericho Sims, yes, they have Ariel Hukporti, who they just drafted in the second round of this year's draft. But there is a solution because they would get their backup center in Walker Kessler, but they also would need a backup 4 and a backup 1. My solution, if this were to happen, you sign Kyle Lowry on the mid-level exception. I should say the veteran minimum. Sign him on the veteran minimum. He's great. He's a very good three-point shooter. Usually averages around 36, 37, 38% from three. Is he the Kyle Lowry all-star of old? No, but you're expecting him to be a guy that runs the bench. He also has plenty of playoff experience with the Sixers and the Raptors and the Miami Heat as well. You're not going to give him a significant ton of minutes. You can interchange that as well, mix up some lineups. Maybe Tyler Kolek gets a look this year. But also as well, you need somebody to be signed to the backup 4 position. Now, Josh Hart got some minutes to the backup 4 position. I don't think that's ideal for him. I think it's better for him to run to 3 unless you run Hart at the 4 and Kessler at the 5, rather than having Achua at the 4 and Hart at the 3 and Hartenstein at the 5 as years prior, or I should say last year. But even then, I think I would sign somebody like Saddiq Bey on the mid-level exception, about $5 million per year, taxpayer mid-level exception, that be it. But regardless, this trade can be had. And in my opinion, if the Knicks have this in their hands and they say, you know what, Deuce McBride, Jericho Sims, maybe a first and a second for Walker Kessler, I think the Knicks should make this deal. I think the Knicks have still a void in the backup center role. This is a guy who can get better over time. He's not just an aged veteran, and he is also under control for a couple of years. He's going to become a restricted free agent in 2026, 2027. And the year prior, the team holds a club option, so they can obviously decline it and make him an unrestricted free agent. It's all in the Knicks' hands. It's a very good salary. So regardless, am I making this trade if I'm the Knicks? Absolutely. Absolutely. The Knicks need to go all in. They need as many, much help as possible, much depth as possible. Regardless, the Knicks should absolutely make this trade. You know what you also should do? Hit that like button, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Also share this out, share my channel out. I appreciate you all for your support. Also turn on that notification bell so you know when a live stream goes live or I upload a new video. This is Luca, been talking about the Walker Kessler rumors, and I do indeed think the Knicks should pull this off. Regardless, I will talk to you all later. Peace.